everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Ride for Life podcast. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. Our mystery guest is joining us in the virtual studio this evening. We are very honored and just blessed to have the one, the only, Michael Graham of the Gravity Group. Welcome to the virtual studio, Michael.
Wow, thanks. Yeah, that was quite an intro. I'm happy to be here. I love talking about roller coasters, and I love talking about Jesus. And I usually don't get a chance to talk about both in the same time, so I'm super excited.
Awesome. Well, like I said, it's truly an honor to have you in here this week. And what better way to end this era of the podcast than to have Gravity Group in the virtual studio? So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Go ahead and introduce yourself, share your testimony, and it's whatever the Lord lays on your heart.
Yeah, so my name is Michael Graham. You can call me Mike. I'd say it's probably about 51% Mike, 49% Michael. We've had up to 4 mics at our place at the Gravity Group. So often if you say Michael, everybody knows it's me. So that's a good thing. So yeah, don't worry about the whole Mike thing. Be like Mike, but his name's Michael Jordan, whatever. Yeah, I have an interesting story, I guess, and I'll start by telling you my first Cedar Point memory. I was really young. I didn't know exactly how young until I kind of looked back through some historical geekdom. We were at Cedar Point with my family, which we did. We went every couple of years when we had some free tickets or something like that. I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and our family actually had 6 foster sisters over the time of growing up as well. And I think one of them was with us on this Cedar Point trip. I don't remember. So my 2 older brothers and I, we had, you'll appreciate this, we had matching outfits.
That's awesome.
Turns out I was 3 years old, and I had, my brother John was probably 5, and my oldest brother David was 6. And I remember walking around. I remember going into Frontier Town. This is a long time ago. I'm really old. So this was in the either late 70s or early 80s, and walking around Cedar Point. And there's these big roller coaster things out there. And my parents were not a fan. They were not like, hey, let's go ride roller coasters. They're like, no, those are debatably evil things. We shouldn't be going towards them. But we did ride the mill race. So the mill race was a log flume where Raptor stands now. So Raptor might rule the sky, but the mill race ruled the ground and the water. But sorry, that was terrible. So we rode the mill race quite a few times. All 5 of us were in the boat, I remember. And that was the big drop. My parents were definitely white knuckling on that drop, and we thought it was really fun. That's one of the primary things that I remember. And then we also had a caricature done of the 4 of us,
Nice.
or the 3 of us, I mean. And so one thing I remember was I remember seeing the sky and this huge roller coaster. And these cars just kind of went down and up, down and up. And I just thought it was like the largest, craziest thing, like daredevils. Only daredevils would ever go on something like that. And after, getting into coasters a little bit later in my life, I was like, oh, that was the Wildcat. Little Schwarzkopf Wildcat, I thought was the biggest thing ever when I was 3 years old. And I'm pretty sure it was in its old location, which is up, closer to where Windseeker is.
Okay.
But just kind of flashing back, it's kind of an interesting memory because I didn't realize I could remember things when I was 3 years old. like what other memories do you have? I thought I was probably 5 or 6 until I looked at some dates and times and things like that. So. But yeah, early on, I grew up in a Christian family. I'm really blessed to have that. Even my grandparents were Christians, and I was somewhere between blessed and sheltered, or both. And so all through elementary school, I was always doing stuff with my hands. and building stuff, lots of Lego. And I guess some of the trips to Cedar Point were an inspiration. I remember building the Huss Enterprise, which was called Witch's Wheel up there. Again, my parents weren't a big fan of the name Witch's Wheel, nor Gemini, nor Demon Drop. Demon Drop was another thing that I built out of Lego, and had a full working like elevator and then a drop, and a couple other rides. So their Thunder Canyon was the Rapids ride, like Kings Island's Rapids ride. And I'm kind of I guess this was probably more. My brother and I did a lot of this together. My brother, 2 years older than myself, where we both ended up going into engineering. He was in electrical, I was in mechanical. But lots of construction of rides, all kinds of other stuff out of Lego. We built like this little lake in our backyard with wood and plastic, and had our Lego boats, and like you name it, we built anything and everything. We were building soccer goals because we loved soccer. Still love soccer. FC Cincinnati,
Yes.
my jam. We're going into the playoffs this weekend.
Awesome.
Hell is real. Starting of the tournament. So for those who don't know, sorry, quick tangent here. So FC Cincinnati and Columbus Crew, both MLS soccer teams, have a big rivalry, naturally being only an hour and a half apart. And as you might know, if you've driven on one of the most boring sections in the U.S. between Columbus and Cincinnati, you're abruptly interrupted by a sign that says, "Hell is real." And so somebody early on in the FC Cincinnati history decided to name the rivalry Hell is Real. So it was the Hell is Real Derby. Yeah, so it's either Derby or Darby, depending on your accent or pronunciation or whatever. I'm still trying to work through that. If you have some insight onto why it's called Darby here, is it just an English accent? Message me. I really want to know. All right, so back to soccer. So we had a really cool house. We were renting most of my life, and we were renting this house that was right next to a grocery store and a drugstore, and we had about an acre. So we had a big soccer field, we got a big garden, and it also happened to have an extra space, which I'll talk about later. So I was building stuff, and involved a little bit with our church. We had it was a really small church, so there was probably about 10 families or so in our church. And so instead of having like a big youth group sometimes I went over to our friends' youth group, but mostly I just was with our church. And we did a lot of, and it turns out all the people my age were all guys. So we had lots of camping and all kinds of, random guy stuff. And it was a lot of fun. We made stuff out of wood. We're always crafting stuff. I learned a lot growing up from just working with my hands and designing stuff. So as I was getting into elementary school, somebody told me that a mechanical engineer is somebody who designs machines. And I was like, well, what else would I want to do? Like, that's exactly what I want to do. I could do that for a living. Like, that doesn't sound like a job. That sounds like awesome. So, so kind of early on, I kind of learned about that. I remember having a conversation with my oldest brother who just got back from Cedar Point, and he was like, "Oh, there's this ride open there. It's called Iron Dragon, and it like was suspended beneath a rail." And how he was describing it to me didn't make any sense. I was like, "David, it doesn't make any sense what you're saying." Once I saw it, I was like, "Oh, I understand the mechanism now." But yeah, it was cool. So I remember also Avalanche Run turned into Disaster Transport, turned into nothing. But Disaster Transport, Avalanche Run was a trough style roller coaster, bobsled style coaster. And that was actually between that and Demon Drop was kind of like the first roller coasters I actually made. So we saved up probably about 3 to 5 months worth of paper towel tubes and toilet paper tubes. And so I basically cut those into little segments and had these little cars going down. Made the cars out of Lego, took the tires off because that was too much friction, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I was very interested in roller coasters. But what really got me interested was we were very not rich, I guess you could say, growing up. But we did have one big vacation, so it was very much like an epic, summer vacation. And this was the year of my going into high school. So my oldest brother David was just graduated college or graduated high school. My brother John was a sophomore. Or he was going into junior. I was going into freshman. So we had a couple things that summer, family things. So my parents, um, sorry, I back up a little bit. I grew up in the Cleveland area, so Cedar Point was like my jam. It wasn't like coming from Cincinnati
Yeah.
up there. So I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. My parents were from out of state. My mom grew up in Minnesota. My dad grew up in Colorado. They met and stayed in Cleveland. I still don't quite understand why they settled in Cleveland. Not that it was bad, just odd.
Yeah.
And so usually our summer trips were just going out to Minnesota or going to Colorado. That was kind of what we usually did. And yeah, we drove in a big mid 80s GM car, Oldsmobile or Chevrolet or one of those Chevrolet, one of the two. So this one was an opportunity. We had a couple things. We had a family reunion in one of them and a birthday or anniversary in one of the other states. So we were going to end up going to Minnesota and then to Colorado and then to home. So we're talking about major amounts of driving. But we wanted to visit my uncle who was down in Texas and also my cousins and stuff out in California. And we wanted to go through some of the national parks. That was one of our goals. So yeah, we picked up my uncle. He was actually working at Keith Green's ministry. I forget the name of it, down in Tyler, Texas. So we got to actually see that campus a little bit. I don't remember the name of the ministry. So we picked him up. We also borrowed a van. So we had a conversion van, which was really wonderful. It had captain's chairs, and this is like pre-minivan days, and we had a lot of space. And yeah, we put a lot of miles on that thing. So we came down. We picked up my uncle in Texas. We went out, saw. I think we saw Painted Desert. We saw Grand Canyon. We made it out to California, and my dad had always been like, I always wanted to take you guys to Disneyland. Never really had the chance to do so. Here's our chance to go to Disneyland. And we were staying with my cousins out there and their family, or my uncle and aunt, but I call them my cousin because my cousins were our age, and they were some of my mom's nieces and nephew, or my mom's niece and nephew. And we didn't get to see them too much, but they were like our age, so it was really nice to hang out. And so we get there, and they're like, yeah, we're going to go to Disneyland. And they're like, we don't want to go to Disneyland. We want to go to Six Flags. And we're like, okay, that's fine. We'll do that instead. So my cool uncle, the one that we picked up in Texas, he took us up to Magic Mountain. And so and we actually saw the Viper commercials on TV, like when we were there at my cousin's house, and we're like, oh wow, that looks amazing. Now this is like just after Magnum opened, so the idea of a big steel coaster, wasn't foreign to us, but I hadn't been on Magnum yet. I hadn't really been to the park in a couple years, and so we go to Magic Mountain, and I am just blown over by Viper. I was just like, everything about it, from the ride, from the visuals, from the mechanical. I was like, hey, there's got to be some mechanical engineers who designed this, probably with some civil engineers, and that should be me. Like, I was just like, this is what I want to do. So I was a freshman in high school, and I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to build roller coasters. And so I got back. We finished up our trip, went to Yellowstone. We went to a few other places, went to Rocky Mountain National Park, and it was just an epic, awesome time. I think my parents kind of wanted to do it before my eldest brother was away at college, and we were all everywhere else. So timing was really fun. Just a good time, very memorable. Everybody, when we talk about vacation, everybody's like, yeah, that one. So yeah, it was really cool. vacation, but it definitely gave me some direction on, you know, like what really got my spark in roller coasters. And I always thought it was kind of like a goofy, odd thing to be interested in, like probably plenty of our listeners.
Hmm.
It's like, why am I interested in roller coasters? It's like, well, because they're awesome.
Yeah.
You can be. It's okay. We're all in this
Absolutely.
together here, guys. Um, so, um, so I get back, and as I've said, like I want to make something. So I'm like, hey, I can't build this out of Lego. Like this doesn't work. There's nothing out there that I can make a roller coaster model with, and I need to do it. And so I went down to the hardware store and I said, "What's around here?" I started looking up and down the aisles. I remember exactly which one it was. It was a little Ace True Value in North Ridgeville, Ohio, and I was like, oh wait, there's some like water tubing. I was like, maybe I could use that. So I started scrounging around different things. I still had a Lego car that I had built. And so I built a model of, kind of like the Magnum. So it was kind of like inspired by that. It was about probably about 16 foot long, about 6 foot high. And it worked. It was definitely something that if I make something roller coaster modelish, I wanted to make it work. I just
Hmm.
like, like static model's cool, but hey, if it works, all the better.
Hmm.
Um, and so as I was going through high school, I was getting involved with the coaster enthusiast community. I joined American Coaster Enthusiast. I also joined Great Ohio Coaster Club. Met tons of people through there. Um, one of my coolest memories actually is one of my first events that I went to was a tour of Chippewa Lake Park up in northern Ohio. So this is a park that closed in 1978. We were there in the late 90s, so it was all decrepit.
Yeah.
And I met some people there that are still friends with and still in touch with, and got to see their wood coaster there was just kind of rotting away. The trains were actually still on the track. A couple of people kind of hopped in and it moved like pushed back 10 feet between trees. So um, really cool. It's just one of those like that was kind of probably my first thing about like roller coaster history. And so I started exploring all the different parks. All through high school, I was the coaster guy, as many of our listeners
Yeah.
probably are, or gals. So yeah, as I was going through high school, I got just really interested in roller coasters, but also the industry, the business. And so each year, freshman through senior, you had to do some type of term paper. So back in the day, we called them term papers. I really don't know why they were called term papers, but they were. So basically, a big, huge, capstone kind of
Hmm.
paper at the end of the year. And so freshman year, I was like, okay, the topic was like history or economics or safety or something like that. I don't remember what all the different things were. And so, yes, naturally, I catered each term paper to something related to the amusement industry or roller coasters or something like that. So, in the process, I was just kind of like, oh, this is really cool. So, yeah, I went to the library, checked out real like books with paper, and did the research that way. This is all pre-internet.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, I know, right? So yeah, very much involved with that. But I also soon kind of got, a little bit of the wind knocked out of me of like, I was told just like many other particularly people my age is there's a better chance being an astronaut than a roller coaster designer. And I was like, well, that's not very nice. So I was like, well, I think I should be. I think I should be good at it. Um, and so I also heard some more constructive criticism. It was like, hey, I have a plan B. You definitely, you know, go towards that, pursue that, but have a plan B. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. And so I was also very interested in, airspace, anything that flies for whatever reason. And so as I get into college, I started being involved. We had a SAE air design group, which designed model airplanes that were like really large ones, more UAVs, I guess, more than more than model airplanes. Um, but so yeah, so that was kind of my plan A, my plan B. My plan A was roller coasters. My plan B was aerospace. I was like, okay, we can probably do this. I actually was fortunate to get a co-op job at an aerospace pump company, and so that was just a really cool experience. Get my foot in the door for how industry works. It's just very different than school. And so after I built my first model, which by the way was called the Scarlet Fever. I'm not quite sure why. It was red like the Magnum, and I was just like, oh, I'll just call it the Scarlet Fever. Um, One of my buddies in high school, his favorite colors were green and black, because this comes into the next thing. And he's like, if I ever had a roller coaster, I'd call it the Black Plague.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of morbid. And so my next roller coaster was called the Black Plague. So after I learned all kinds of stuff on the first roller coaster model, I'm a sophomore in high school, and I had my mom drive me to actually I talked to a couple people in industry of like different materials, and so they're like, oh yeah, you should probably look at this plastic or this other type of wood. And so I had my mom drive me to this plastic supplier up in Cleveland area, because they had one of the guys that I knew. He's like, oh, you should go here. They sell all the cutoffs by the pound, and you're not having to buy full sheets or rods or whatever. So I used to go there a lot. My mom used to drive me out there, and we used to pick up all kinds of random stuff for my coaster models. And so the second one was very similar to Vortex at Kings Island. So it was a very detailed train. The train was about foot and a half long, ball bearings, fully rotation of everything. There wasn't anything that I had seen really anybody else doing like this, but I just felt compelled to do it. I was just like, this is cool. I want to just learn more about this. And so, yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. And so this one was a good 7 foot high, and it was about 10 feet by 16 feet. These are very large models, and I feel that God blessed us with a house that had various spaces that could support such a hobby.
It was meant to be.
So we had this kind of this add-on suite that the original builder of the house, they had for their mother-in-law or father-in-law or mother or something like that. So it was like this big open area where there's a kitchen and then a bedroom and a bathroom. So I kind of commandeered that. Now sometimes we had some friends stay with us, whether they were just needing a house for a little bit or missionaries that were in town. So they kind of stayed in there and kind of lived with the model, which was fine. They're like, what is this? That's a roller coaster model. It's like, okay. And now what's also kind of cool is it had an oven in it.
Oh.
And the reason why it's cool is because I was actually taking plastic for the spine of the ride, and I took it, heated it up in the oven, and then bent it right into shape. And so I was like 5 feet away from a heat source and worked really well. And so, yeah, very kind of bizarre thing. It's like, who's making roller coaster models? So I started, early days of the internet, I started putting my stuff online just to see if anybody else could benefit from what I was doing or meet other people, and met a lot of people all over the place that were doing roller coaster models and just other things into roller coasters. So I was building this Black Plague roller coaster model. So if you want to see video, there is video on YouTube. Do a search for username model coasters. I had that username for probably since YouTube almost started.
Oh, wow.
It's got some hits. It's definitely not viral, but that's fine. And so you'll find the Black Plague on there. If you do a search for the Black Plague coaster model or Black Plague coaster, you'll find it. There's not many coasters. Actually, there's 0 coasters called the Black Plague except for mine. So as I was working on the model, this one took me a long time. As I was going through high school, I was plenty busy with other things too. But so partway through college, I got to the point where it was in pretty good shape, and I got an offer from Ontario Science Center. They reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want to buy your roller coaster model." And I'm like, "Really? Really? Are you serious?" And so they're like, "Yeah, what would you sell it for me?" So I gave them a price, and they're like, "Okay, well, when can you do it?" I was like, "Well, it's not exactly done." It was mostly done. And so I was able to finish it and drive it up to Ontario, Toronto, Ontario. And this is when, let's see, so this was in college. Somehow I was able to rent a box truck, or maybe my parents did, I don't remember. So I drove it up there, got it installed, and there's some video of it, running up there. Um, Now, at the same time, I was also learning a lot about computer stuff. And so I was working in AutoCAD. And so back in the day before 3ds Max, it was called 3D Studio. And so I was learning some animation and stuff. There's some terrible animation in that video too of the Black Flag. But hey, I was just learning. It's all good. But yeah, it's very challenging to build a roller coaster model digitally. Um, but so that kind of finished that model, and then I got an inquiry from a ice cream shop in Grand Junction, Colorado, and they said, "Hey, can you build a roller coaster model for me?" I'm like, "Well, probably." So start talking. They wanted it hanging from their ceiling.
Oh.
I was like, "Okay." And so lo and behold, a few years later, actually, it was a little after college, like about 6 months after college, I finally finished it up and installed it out there. It was like huge. It was 6 foot tall, but it took up basically 12 feet by 25 feet of their shop, and it was basically the track was about 3 inches wide. It was a fully machined B&M inverted style train, and it was pretty impressive, I think. But there's a video of that on the site as well. If you want to go back to 2000, 2000,
Wow.
2000. So, so it's about that time where I was graduating high school or graduating college, and I was really involved. So I was involved with the engineering design team, but I was also involved with the campus ministry. It was called Campus Focus. I was up at the University of Akron. That's where I got my bachelorate in mechanical engineering. Good school, very blue collar, kind of hands-on. Everybody kind of got good hands-on experience there. That's one of the things that attracted me to it. And I got some good scholarships, so that was really helpful. And it was a low-cost school. So, and the co-ops really helped. So all those things, compound. And I sold the roller coaster. So I had to lose my scholarship. I had to make a decision. I was like, am I going to keep my grades up and keep my scholarship, or am I going to have to let my grades slip and sell the roller coaster? And so I chose the roller coaster. And I was like, okay, this is just what it was a business decision.
Yeah.
So speaking of businesses, even from a young age. So my dad was a small business owner. He was mostly a one-man real estate company, and in a slow-moving industrial real estate market. Very challenging business. I don't recommend it to anybody. But he taught us, some good business sense. One of the things was we used to do all kinds of landscaping and stuff for him for all of his different lots that he was trying to sell. So almost every Saturday I was on a lawn tractor, 6 to 8 hours, just mowing lawn, doing all kinds of other stuff too. But one of the things he was like, I'm not going to pay you if I don't have any paperwork. And so if it was 25 cents or if it was $10, he had to have at least some type of paperwork. So we knew that we always had to have something to turn in. He's like, okay, here's my invoice. Please pay Michael Graham, blah, 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 this amount. And so, always kind of had a, interest, vision for small business stuff, or passion, I guess you could say. And so, selling the roller coaster model. And then, so as I was finishing up college, I was involved with this campus ministry. I was doing a lot of video work for them, and I had taken some video classes in college, and just really thought that was really fun. I just really enjoyed that. Now this is here's another little timestamp for everybody. Um, this was right at the verge between analog and digital video editing. So there was a back in the day we used to tape on or record on VHS tapes. There was 8 millimeters. There was a couple different versions. Yeah, there's this thing called beta. Nobody really actually used it. Don't worry about it. So, but I was our church was a really large church. It was right next to the university. It was called the Chapel. Newt Larson was the pastor at the time. He was on the radio. Real great congregation. And as I was graduating, there was an opportunity that opened up, and it was for a video editing position. I was like, well, I'm already doing that every week, for the campus ministry here. I was like, I'm a shoo-in. This will be great. It's a holy job. This is, exactly what God wants. This is cool. I was like, I like roller coasters too, but yeah, that's fine. That can just be a hobby. That's more of a selfish passion than anything. And um, so somebody else got that job, and I'm like, what? Like, no, that's my job. Like, that's what I'm here for. And so I was like, okay, I'm kind of bummed out. And so I applied um, two places. The first place I applied was a place called Intrax. So Intrax was a company that was in the industry, amusement industry, and they did promo videos for amusement parks. So they did one for it was either Raptor or Mantis.
Okay.
They did some animation, and they also did the Son of Beast one.
Oh.
So the Son of Beast animation, yeah, it looks terrible now if you look back at it. But because I had done some animations, they'd done some models as well, and I was like, oh, animations and models, like that's what I'm doing. That would be really, really cool. However, never really heard back from them. Actually, I should say I did hear back. They weren't in a position, to hire somebody else. But they were, up in Northern Ohio, real easy, commute kind of thing. However, I gotta backtrack a little bit. So I mentioned my roller coaster models were Magnum style, Vortex style, and B&M style. So definitely, if you grew up at Cedar Point, you don't care about wood coasters. Like, we had Mean Streak and Blue Streak, and they're just forgettable. Like, just be real. And so now I did go to Kennywood growing up as well. I remember my brother and I driving down there. He had one of those huge station wagons, like it had the wood on the side, and one of his wipers wasn't working, and we were driving to Kennywood. It was a blast. It was such a cool thing, and we rode Steel Phantom, the looping coaster there. So that was all just really cool. And we both were like, "Wow, there's life outside of Cedar Point." We've been marketed to. It's like, this is the greatest amusement park in the world. Don't go anywhere else. There's no reason to go anywhere else. Now, it also been 1994 was my first trip down to Kings Island. So as I was growing up, between school trips and youth group trips of other people, it was like all of the people that we knew, somebody's youth group was going to Cedar Point at whatever time. So we all just jumped in whatever youth group it was. So we went to, in high school, we were going probably 3 to 5 times a year. Super bizarre story too. So after prom, up in at least the west side of Cleveland area, somehow we all have it ingrained in our brains after prom, the day after. So the prom's on Saturday night or Friday night. The day after was always Cedar Point. I don't know why. And come down to Kings Island, I was like, that is so bizarre. But it's such a different clientele. Kings Island, I just go there for dinner. You can't really do that for Cedar Point. And so it's always a bit of a destination. Sandusky summertime is 45 minutes away for some Reliant K fans out there. Let's see here. So Cedar Point is always something a little bit special. It was never just like go there for dinner. Like, I didn't actually know anybody who had season passes growing up, except some of the coaster enthusiast community people. But yeah, it was just kind of bizarre. So one of those times was the after prom day, and like, I still don't know why. I still don't know if they're still doing it, but it was like every school, like, I don't know, whatever. And then we also, the night the after prom, being a Christian school, it was basically we had a dinner. We may or may not have a dance that might have been controversial. I think our class was actually the only one that had a dance because it was the last year of the school, and it was like a couple days from closing. And we're like, yeah, what are they going to do? But the after prom was usually at like an FEC, so that was kind of cool. So there was a place called Swings and Things up in northern Ohio. They had a kiddie coaster there for a little bit, but yeah, everybody in their dresses and tuxes went out and drove go karts and
There you
did
go.
mini golf. It was fun. So good, clean fun at a Christian school. Where was I? So I applied to Intrax. They kind of said no. I know what I was going to do. So as I was learning about roller coasters, some friends of mine in Great Ohio Coaster Club, John Blakemore, Mike Burks, they were like, and this is time travel back to 1995, 1996, 90, somewhere right in there. They're like, hey, there's this ride that opened at this park you've never heard of in southern Indiana. So the Raven opened at Holiday World, and everyone was blown away by it. It was so amazing. It was smooth at the time, Donnie.
Yes, that blows my mind.
Right. And so they're like, you have to go check this thing out. And I was like, well, I like steel coasters. Like, nothing's going to be really convincing me of, of that. And so it was about the time, I kind of forget the date. I think I might have already gotten some information from Intrax. So I go down there, and I remember it being my birthday, and they're like, you got to start your ride at night. And I was like, okay. So my birthday, sometime in the late 90s, I was down at Holiday World, and I went on this wood coaster. And I'm just like, this is unlike anything at Cedar Point or Kennywood. Like, this is amazing. I'm flying through the trees. I can't see a thing. It was probably even darker back then because there's other lights and stuff. I get back to the station. I was like, okay, this has kind of changed everything for me. They were right. I know exactly who I want to work for. I want to work for Custom Coasters, and that's my dream job. Like, that's exactly what I want to do. So as I was going back to Northern Ohio, I drove through Cincinnati. I kind of found their shop. I had the address, so I had to take a couple turns, but I finally found where I wanted to work. And so I applied short or a little bit after that. I kind of forget if that was a couple years before or a couple months before. So I applied, and the job opened, and I was like, hey, God, like, this is a selfish, like, passion of mine. Like, why did you open this door, not the one at the chapel? It's like I didn't understand it. I was like, it doesn't seem right. Like, I was just like, I was excited, but I was like, really, God, okay, I'll if this is what you want, like, okay, I'm all about that. So I was still wrapping up some stuff on the Soda Jack ice creamer. That was the name of the one at the ice cream shop. And I actually ended up moving down to Cincinnati. So my first day was January of 2000. If you know the Custom Coasters history of 2000, they did 7 rides that year.
Wow.
I have to backtrack a little bit, but the 7 were Holiday World's Legend, Boulder Dash at Compounce, Myrtle Beach Pavilion's Hurricane Category 5, Six Flags Ohio at the time's Villain, Megazeph at Jazzland at the time was called, obviously pre-Katrina, Six Flags Medusa in Mexico, and Six Flags St. Louis the Boss. So having 7 rides in 1 year is pretty nuts, and I can see why they needed another engineer, because one of the other engineers had left to pursue other stuff, so that created an opening for me. And so I was just kind of blown away. So another thing on my website that I had been going from my home, which is on the west side of Cleveland, all the way down to Akron pretty often for school and for visiting or whatever. And so I decided to take a detour to the kind of the east side of Cleveland to Jug Lake, because they were doing lots of construction. Because it's like, wow, Premier Parks is going to be making this a Six Flags, and there's a lot going on there, because it was pretty clear that there was a lot of stuff going on. So I actually was covering the construction of the 4 coasters they were putting in: Villain, Superman, Beaver Creek Mine Ride, maybe, and Batman Night Flight. And so it was really cool because it was like my buddy John, who was telling me about riding Raven. He and I were there one day, and we were walking around, and we were looking over, and we're like, man, it looks like it might be a wood coaster footings over there. And then we walk over to the parking lot, and there's a trailer. It says custom coasters on it, and we're like, we might be the first enthusiasts to understand that we're getting a custom coasters ride here at our home park. Like, this is amazing. Cedar Point is my home park too, but I was really kind of halfway between. Great memories at Geauga Lake. Riding the Dipper. They had their Oktoberfest celebration there. Now, Oktoberfest in Cleveland hits a little differently. So they had the Oompa band. They had the tents, all kinds of Oktoberfest, the misty smell of beer kind of everywhere. But being true Clevelanders, you had pierogies, you had gyros, you had all these other foods, trailers and stuff. Now, this is like before food trucks with the old trailers, but they had them all up and down the midway. It was awesome. And they had a really cool deal. And I would say the admission was probably in the $20 range, but they had this banana boat deal. So anybody you can fit in one car gets the whole car in for $40.
Wow.
And so my friends and I from college were like, hey, we're going to pile. At the time, I think I might have had my first car, which was a terrible car, but it could fit 6 people because it had 2 bench seats. And so I remember going up there and just having a wonderful time there at Geauga Lake. Let's see, Geauga Lake. So I was covering the construction of the Villain, and all of a sudden, like literally weeks later, I'm actually doing some drawings for Villain, and I was like, this is so bizarre. Like, this is like, I don't know, kind of blowing my mind about how cool this was. It's like I have this dream company I want to work for. I find out they're doing this ride. I'm covering it, and now I'm working on the same ride.
Cool.
And I was up there, during commissioning, and it was. I remember climbing around, greasing the rails, and interestingly, that was probably the 3rd ride that our buddy Fred Grubb of Rocky Mountain, who started Rocky Mountain, he was a project manager up there for custom coasters. He had gotten his experience out on Tremors and Timber Terror, and as you understand, there were 7 rides to build, and so there was an experienced crew that was available, and so he was heavily involved with the Villain. So yeah, we worked with him back then, and we've always had a good relationship with him. He's kind of like obviously he's not active as much anymore, but he was always kind of like the golden retriever of the industry. You just wanted to get along with everybody, and had a great demeanor and great laugh, of course. So shout out to Fred. Obviously, he's a competitor of ours, but it's a small industry, and it's just not really wise to have enemies too much. So yeah, it's just kind of this real bizarre Geauga Lake story. So there's a lyric from Reliant K. So most of you guys have heard of Reliant K or Sadie Hawkins Dance, probably their biggest hit. So the lyric was, okay, so who doesn't own a cell phone? Who brought back their permission slip? Because I know nobody wants to stay home, while the rest of us go out and make a day of it. Because theme parks are so much more fun when the sun's outside. And I lost my phone to the lake beneath the Batman ride. And I was like, you know what? Batman, Six Flags, has to be at a Six Flags or Six Flags park. Which one would that be? So I started looking at all the Batmans. I was like, well, Geauga Lake was Six Flags at a period of time. They had Batman Night Flight. I was like, okay, that's a Batman ride. I'm first thinking about all the Batman B&M inverts. And so I'm like, okay, LeBron, Chicago. Like, none of them have a lake beneath the Batman ride. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I was like, well, I also happen to know that Reliant K is from Northern Ohio. They're from North Canton. And so Six Flags Ohio was in 2000, then it was changed to Six Flags Worlds of Adventure in 2001 to 2003. So I'm kind of getting geeked out. I'm like, okay, well, the album came out in like 2002, so it was definitely Batman Night Flight where they lost their cell phone. I was like, I win. I got this little, trivia thing. So I've completely wasted 15 seconds of your life, which Ryan quoted that you didn't get earlier, Dan. Yeah, that ain't there. So yeah, I certainly went through my Reliant K phase, and so I started working at Custom Coasters in January 2000, and it was just crazy. Those first months of 2000 were super busy, and just going everywhere. We had I learned a lot. We were out there, as an engineer, you get to be thrown in at whatever problems out there, and there's a semi-famous picture of Corey Keepert, my business partner now, and I down at Holiday World Legend, and we were doing some work on the Gerstlauer trains, and we were covered head to toe in black grease. It was something. It just doesn't even look like us. I was refreshed recently in my memory that we actually posted that on Gravity Group social media about 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I don't even remember that. So yeah, go figure. So it was always a you're not above anything. You're going to be wearing multiple hats. This is a small business. They say that you use 10% of what you learn in college in your daily work, and then your daily work you only use 10% of what you learned at your daily job. And I'm like, so you're saying that I'm doing about like 1% of each day is actually related to what I learned. And I was like, well, how do you learn the rest of the 99%? And so yeah, I'm a big proponent of, internships, co-ops, things like that. That question always comes up at the Gravity Group, by the way. We have had a few internships and co-ops over the years, but usually it's very rare. If you are interested, send your resume and stuff our way. And we haven't had one in quite a few years, so there's have a plan B, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah.
However, I think the industry's changed a lot since I started. When I started, there was kind of this new wave of people in the industry that wanted to be in the industry, where everybody else that was kind of in the industry didn't have any passion about it. And so in those days, Corey Keepert, Chris Gray at Skyline, Jeff Pike at Skyline, Mark Rosenzweig, he was at RES, now he's at 3DX Scenic here in Cincinnati, Adam Standy, Brian Andre, all these guys were kind of coming in right at that same time, all coming from an enthusiast background. So we were really passionate about what we were doing. And so now that, we're the decision makers, we can, sometimes it's helpful to have somebody with that passion of the enthusiast, and sometimes it's, better to not. Kind of just depends on, what kind of jobs. But we're a fan of hiring enthusiasts. We feel that they last longer, as far as, not to say we go through people quickly. But yeah, they'll go the extra mile often, and just really enjoy what we're doing. Sorry, my earbuds keep falling out. But yeah, I feel that the difference in the industry now is, number one, passion is a lot more accepted. It used to be kind of a fringe. When I got hired at Custom Coasters, they said that they're like, oh, who gets to sit next to the weird guy? So yeah, because I had all this stuff about my roller coaster models as part of my portfolio. Everybody else just sent it in resumes, and so certainly I stuck out because of that. And I sent all my animations and photos and stuff like that on a CD back when we used to use CDs. For transferring data. Like, isn't that wild? We used to store data
I was gonna say,
on DVDs and CDs.
Were floppy disks part of this as well?
You know what? When I first started typing, I had a typing class, and we had a whole bunch of hand-me-down computers at our school. So there was a IBM PC Junior, and that was the fast, cool computer. And you can have, there was like cartridge games you could plug in the back. But we actually had Tandy TRS 80s.
Huh.
And so these were the big rock looking things. And yes, it had the big, not the 5 1/4, but the 8-inch floppy drive.
Goodness.
And yeah, this was like it felt like a museum when I was there. So this was like it was like, hey, we're throwing these computers away. You guys need some computers at your school, right? And it's like going to Goodwill and picking up a brand new computer kind of feeling. It's like, no. And so we could type on the computers. That was about it.
Job done.
And yeah. But yeah, so right out of college, actually, or right out of high school, I got an internship at a electrical equipment supplier or distributor, and that was actually when I um, got my first Windows experience. So up to that point, it was DOS, and I had some DOS games, and we had some other DOS programs on our computers. But yeah, we learned Windows and had Disney's Coaster game.
Oh.
So this was on a 3.5-inch floppy. So yes, the floppy is part of my story. I still have it. It's in my office. It's cool. I don't have anything to play it on. So at lunch at the internship, I had a computer that could play it. And so I popped it in and designed my coaster, and it was really fun. And that was also my first experience with software. That's another thing that I want to bring up. So they were using the Lotus suite of software. So back in the day, there was this thing called Lotus 123, which is a spreadsheet. Lotus Notes, which did all kinds of random stuff. I don't think I even use Notes, but that was kind of the last hurrah of Lotus. Lotus Approach was the spreadsheet, and Lotus AMI Pro or Word Pro, I think, was the word processor. So Lotus 123 at the time was probably 80% of all spreadsheet was Lotus 123. And a lot of these guys that I worked with, they actually just got adopted from the DOS version. And so all the DOS stuff was all shortcut keys. And so it was like the slash key pulled up the menu, and then you go to your menus and do all this stuff. And, a couple years after that is when Excel really kind of took out Lotus 123. Actually, my co-op had Lotus 123, now I'm thinking about it as well. But something that was kind of fun, though, is the slash key for the longest time in Excel pulled up the menu because of all the Lotus users. So, yeah, there's a computer trivia point for you that will get you nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. It's either the forward slash or the backward slash key, one of the two. So now that you know something you don't ever need to know, so at Custom Coasters, we were just really, jumping into whatever we had to as engineers. And so then 2001 was a lot softer year. So coming off a year of 7 rides, we had Cornball Express and Cheetah. And so we kind of started those 2 rides. Those went pretty smoothly. Cornball was absolutely fantastic. Kind of a new generation ride of sorts, because people are like, oh, it's a family coaster, but this is ridiculously fun, lots of airtime. So we started changing our design philosophy a little bit around that time from the traditional way that Custom Coasters has been doing it. And then in 2002, we did Lost Coaster of Superstition Mountain. Cornball Express, Superstition Mountain, if you aren't familiar, those are both at Indiana Beach. And then Cheetah is at Wild Adventures in Valdosta, Georgia. And so so then we also started a ride at Cliffs Amusement Park in Albuquerque, New Mexico, called New Mexico Rattler. And so that was in June or so of 2002. We were working on that project, and the boss brought us into her office and said, hey, you guys are all laid off. And shortly thereafter, we closed the doors and went bankrupt. And so we were just shocked. We were just like, this is kind of crazy. Like, what do we do? I was 2 years out of college. I moved to another city, and not really sure what to do. So, Custom Coasters was a construction company. A little history on Custom Coasters. Um, so in 1978, Charlie Din was the chief site supervisor on the Beast. And shortly after the Beast, he left Kings Island and he started DynCorp. So DynCorp was a construction company. He had the background of building. He understood that. And at the time of the Beast, he had worked with Kurt Summers Engineering. And so they're like, hey, let's do the wood coaster construction and have Kurt Summers do the design. Kurt Summers had two guys working for him primarily that did a lot of the wood coaster design stuff. A guy named Dennis Starkey. You search his name on RCDB, you'll pull up a number of different things, as well as Larry Bill. So those were two of the guys that started working a lot on a lot of the Charlie Din rides. And so Din was the primary wood coaster manufacturer from 82 to 92. 1991 was a big year. Both kind of tragedies, I guess you could say, is well, no, I shouldn't say tragedy. So Mean Streak was built 1991 as kind of like the pinnacle, tallest, monstrosity of all wood coasters. And later that year, Kurt Summers had a heart attack and he passed away. And so I don't know all the details from business point of view and everything else, but that kind of created enough disruption in that path. So Charlie closed his doors. And so his daughter, Denise, who had been involved a little bit with DynCorp, also with Charlie and Charlie's wife, June, started Custom Coasters. So their chief project supervisor, as well as Denise's husband, was Randy Larrick. And so, Randy was vice president, Denise was president, and her parents were heavily involved. So Custom Coasters started with that. They used Mike Boodley for some their first designs, and they had Larry Bill started in 1993 with them, so he jumped over. He was available with Kurt Summers, or after Kurt Summers passed away. After Kurt Summers passed away, the company closed. So Dennis Starkey and Larry Bill continued, in the roller coaster world. Larry Bill jumped on board as the primary designer. So Hoosier Hurricane was Larry's first ride, and he had learned some stuff, from Boodley and from, Dennis Starkey and from Kurt Summers about stuff. He was working with Mike Boodley a bit on Outlaw out at Adventureland, and so Larry worked through there around 1994. A guy named Dennis McNulty came on board. So Larry and Dennis were the two designers. And it was a construction company. You had Denise and Randy, and Charlie and June were still pretty heavily involved. And then you had the construction crew. They had usually a couple crews growing. And so it was their goal was a little bit of a, hey, what we learned from Din was, let's not make rides that are just big. Let's make rides that are small, medium, very family park budget conscious. And so that's really kind of their niche. So they started doing, rides like the Raven and Great White and Megaphobia and things like that, where you have this park that's trying to reach that next level of attendance, and the wood coasters in that economical achievement level. And so Custom Coasters, kept growing and growing. And I kind of told you the end of Custom Coasters. So interestingly, Custom Coasters went from 1992 to 2002. So DynCorp was 10 years, Custom Coasters was 10 years. So we started the Gravity Group in 2002, and we're like, what's going to happen in 2012?
Still going strong.
That's right. So when we started the Gravity Group, we were the engineers at Custom Coasters. It was Larry, Chad, Corey, and myself. And I remember going to a place, here in Mason, and we we're just sitting around a table. We're like, what do we do? Like, what's next for us? And so we said, well, we like what we're doing. We're engineers. We know the engineering part. We don't know the construction part.
Mm-hmm.
Custom Coasters and DIN Corp, we're definitely more on the construction side of things. Um, However, we're right in the middle of New Mexico Rattler's construction process, and they need some engineering support. They've already got the crew on site. The park already said, hey, all of your crew, can I start paying you to finish my roller coaster? And so, of course, nobody said no. They're like, yeah, of course. And so that was actually kind of turned into our business model for the first part of Gravity Group.
Wow.
And so we were using that crew. So we started Gravity Group. We were working out of our houses before it was cool.
Wow.
It was like now everybody wants to work from home, and we're like, oh, can't wait till we get that first office.
Yeah.
So we finally got our first office in 2004-ish or so. We up until that point we were working on some various projects. One of the bigger projects we had was Holiday World's second train and storage track on Raven, for example. So they were just running one train. Larry and Dennis had already planned, saying, here's a spot. A lot of Custom Coast rides had kind of an area for future expansion like that. And so we were able to, jump on that, and that was really appreciated by us as well as Will Cook. We worked heavily with Will and the crew down there on that ride. But yeah, the first part of Gravity Group, we were just beating down bushes. We had a lot of park contacts, so we had been to a lot of these parks to do rides, and we're saying, hey, we're selling engineering services. If that's a wood coaster, that's great. If it's whatever, that's great too. So we did foundation designs for a lot of different rides. Super random stuff. So we did the platform for the Aircrow flying scooters at Indian Beach because we had a good relationship with them. Um, we did foundations for Magic Springs Tacoma suspended looping coaster that they were putting in. Just random stuff just to make ends meet. In 2004, we were in contact, with one of the other people that we worked with at Custom Coasters at Mount Olympus. So Nick Lascaris up there, he was kind of the younger guy, and his dad was the decision maker. So think about my Big Fat Greek wedding. It was convincing the patriarch to make the decision. Sometimes you want that patriarch to think it's his idea.
Yeah.
So Nick was really pushing, hey, he wanted this ride. Even back in Custom Coasters, there were some, sketches and renderings and things like that of a ride that's going to go under the parking lot. It's going to be called Hades. It's going to be about the underworld. That's just going to be what it is. And so we got some, designs going for him, and we thought that was going to be really cool. But then his dad passed away, and we're like, oh, we just kind of wind out of the sails. This is never going to happen. Blah blah blah. And we wanted to give him space and whatnot. And so he calls us. He's like, "All right, guys, we're doing it." We're like, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "If my dad were around, he'd just want me to, keep going. Let's just keep going." And we're like, "All right, let's do this." And so obviously we hit the ground running with Hades, and it was wild because um, there's this huge concrete construction going on in the middle of their parking lot, and the idea that a roller coaster is going to go through there's just preposterous. And so it's kind of under everybody's radar until the vertical construction started going up, and then they're like, oh wow, this is going to be something really different. So yeah, we started with Hades. So we were using the crew that was at Cliffs, and then we did Voyage. And then we went up to Waldemere, same business model. We also did at the time we also didn't have the construction crew, but we also worked with Martin and Fleming's rides on Boardwalk Bullet the same year, and so we did the design for that, and they built it while our crew was up at Waldemere. Approximate dates, I don't remember. They're both 2008, 2009. The dates are a little blurred. It's been a little while. And then soon after that, we realized that we needed something to improve the maintenance on the wood coasters. And so that was definitely the theme of um, of a lot of our history. And so we've looked at structure, we've looked at track, we've looked at a lot of different things. But at this time, we're like the current trains, whether it's PTCs, Gerstlauer, whatever is out there, it's a box car and it wants to bounce around, and the track doesn't really have much say in the matter. So wherever the train wants to go, it's going to go. And wood coasters are known for a wood track with steel track or steel layers on them, and that steel bashes into the wood horizontally and vertically, and that's what starts making a wood coaster rough. You know, when a wood coaster is new, it's usually always smooth, and so it was around that time that we started looking at what it would take to make our own train. And so we're like, you know, we need something that puts less force on the track. We need to decrease the amount of hammering that goes on that track. And when we did Lost Coaster of Superstition Mountain, it's always a mouthful. So we had quite a few big innovations on that ride. So the Lost Coaster was a electric dark ride, kind of a pretzel style, where there's a metal track in the middle. It was indoors and outdoors. It went through a 3-level mountain, essentially, called Superstition Mountain. And so it had these really tight radii inside the mountain that this ride went through. And the park was like, hey, let's make it gravity powered. And we're like, okay, sounds simple enough. And so I think Corey primarily came up with a way that we could do that. So we kind of went through this one level, went outside, went through the next level, went outside. A very compact footprint. If you haven't been to the park, please do. It's just a really cool experience. It's just very different than anything else you've been to. But it had very little footprint. So we ended up with a vertical lift. So we designed that from scratch. We actually had Larson help us out on the hydraulics. They had more experience in that than we did, and we had worked with them on AirPro, as a foundation designer a little bit ago. We had a good relationship with them, and then we also designed our own cars. So I was involved with, or I was in charge of the cars, I should say, and so. I had done roller coaster models, and so I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do some cars. That's fine, And so, looking back, I didn't know very much at all. And there's plenty of stuff that I probably would have done differently, but it's still running after, 20 some years, for better, for worse. And so we learned about cars. That ride has the first magnetic brakes on a wood coaster. That was also something that was pretty innovative that we did on that ride. So that kind of set us up for when we needed to do our own trains. 2008, 2009 is when we started, being really serious about designing our own trains. Obviously, we were branded the Timberliner a couple years later. The main thing there is the amount of force on the track horizontally. Instead of a 3-pound hammer hitting the side, it's a 1-pound hammer. And so significantly less stress on the track. And then vertically, it's taking your 2-pound hammer, making it a 1-pound hammer. And so all of that was designed around a steerable bogie system. The bogies are the wheel carriers that, steer like an automobile. And we probably should have patented it because now, our competitors have a very similar steering mechanism to their trains. So I'll put it in the hat of like, hey, I guess we might be going in the right direction. Yeah. So we're kind of staying ahead of people. Mm-hmm. So and then obviously we have a very different shaped train as well. We wanted to have it actually our little phrase. Oh, it's not on the logo here. Modern wooden roller coasters. That's what we kind of have as a tagline of the Gravity Group. Mm-hmm. And so modern wooden roller coasters involve something that's not just a box car. We also wanted to have it as a canvas on the front, a whole 3D area. So when you see our train, you know exactly what ride it's to. Yeah. That's creating that identity, whether it's Kentucky Flyer or Oscar's Wacky Taxi or Cucullin or ZDTs or any of them, it's like, you know exactly what train it is. And so we wanted to make sure that was, you know, integrated from the ground up. Lots of other innovations that myself and my team put into the trains. It's not an easy task designing wooden roller coaster trains. There's high vibration, there's high forces, there's high wear and tear of every type. So it's either the track wears or the train wears, or I shouldn't say that. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, there's plenty of tracks now that, you know, when we started putting the trains on rides, you know, so for instance, when we switched Hades to Hades 360, we put the Timberliners on there. There's always like a Jekyll and Hyde aspect of any conversion we do, because there's, say, 5,000 feet of track or 4,000 feet of track, and the park only wants to do 1,000 feet of track. And so you have 3,000 feet of track that's rough, and you have 1,000 feet that's good. And so when Hades debuted, there was a lot of rough track, and so it's like they just got a lot of flack right off the bat, and we're like, oh, come on. But that's more of the rider enthusiast kind of you know, attitude towards it. The park, they're like, you have no idea what this did for the ride. We were replacing these track bolts. So on the track, you've got the side steel and the top steel, the wheels up here rolling, wheels around here rolling, and you got two rails. And these are all held in with track steel bolts. And so there's these long bolts, they're about this long. If you've been on any type of walk back, they're laying around the ground everywhere. And the park says don't pick them up, usually. So yeah, usually those are track steel bolts. So they, up on a really hot Wisconsin day, they might replace 25 of those here and there throughout the ride. And it's a bit of a chore. They get used to it. You have to pound them out, put the new ones in, put the bolts on there, or put the nuts on there. And it's really tedious. And it's really, you know, the next day, oh, another 25 bolts. You know, same thing with, you know, something like the Voyage and Ravine Flyer. And, you know, we're kind of like, man, this is tough. And if wherever you have track steel bolts break, often that's where the wood's starting to wear. So from a wood coaster, you know, maintenance point of view, those are kind of things that you're looking for. And so, so we get the coaster or get the Timberliners on there, get them all running and fine. And, you know, we're like, hey, you know, how's the ride doing? You know, how are the trains doing up there? At the time, you know, we had them on our, we had them on Groenelund's Twister, and we had them on Wooden Warriors, Wooden Warrior at Quasi. So we had them on smaller rides. And we also had some testing done at Voyage, obviously, as some of you guys know. And so when we were running on my Hades, they were like, I was like, well, how many bolts did you replace yesterday? And they're like, you don't remember the last time I replaced a bolt? I'm like, no, come on. And they're like, oh, wait. Yeah, like a week ago Friday, we replaced one. I was like, really? Like, this is really something. And so, yeah, sure enough, like the amount of track wear is just, you know, very negligible compared to what we had been doing. And so we were like, okay, this is really good. This is going to really help out, you know, wood coasters lasting. And, you know, we hear all the people's comments about our train. We hear you. We know they're, you know, maybe not as comfortable, maybe not as cushy and things like that. And as you can tell by my story already, we're always innovating. So we hear you. So we came out with the Timberliners. Obviously, we did the testing on Voyage, and then we came out with them on Wooden Warrior and Groenelund. If you're skeptical of any of our rides, go ride Wooden Warrior at Quasi. It has 100% satisfaction rate. Like, everybody loves it. I've never met anybody who dislikes that ride. And that was certainly the trend for us, still is for particularly our smaller rides. Just a big hit everywhere. And so I heard Donnie's not a big fan of Kentucky Flyer, so like, Donnie, man, you got to go ride it again.
Yeah, I know.
But that's okay. You know, each to their own. Like, like I said, I thought I was a steel coaster guy, and then I kind of turned into a wood coaster guy. So, um, you know, if I look at the the spectrum of coasters when I was getting into it compared to what there is today, like there's so much today to you know to experience. When I was going, Raptor was really dear to my heart. I thought that was maybe one of the best rides ever. I still am a fan, but just the fact that we had Millennium Force breaking the 300-foot barrier, and
Yep.
you know, you've got all these things, and you got Velociraptor, you got all these things in other countries now. Like
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, very little stuff was coming out, particularly in Asia. Now you have a ton of stuff in
Mm-hmm.
Asia. Europe is steady innovating, so it's an exciting time
Yeah.
to be into coasters. Um, Obviously, our Six Flags chain here is putting in a lot fewer rides than the early
Yeah.
2000s. Um, and I think everybody hopes that they're going to add more and more roller coasters. So we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Obviously, we put in Bobcat 2
Yeah.
years ago. Love that ride. So good. And so, yeah, that was our first ride with Six Flags proper. And let's see here. I'm going all over the place. I was just thinking about Six Flags and Cedar Fair. So when we were at Kentucky Flyer,
Mm-hmm.
we had developed our next thing. We said, hey, we need a track that's stronger. Even though the Timberliner is great, there's not that many rides out there with Timberliners, and
Mm-hmm.
we really want to influence all wind roller coasters.
Yeah.
And so we said, hey, back in the day, you can look at pictures or POV of Camden Park's Big Dipper is a perfect example. In the Straits, they take their wood. Here's the structure. They take their wood, they bend it into shape, and then they take the next layer, bend it into shape. So all of your layers of wood are built up like this, and that's what makes the up and down.
Hmm.
In the curve, they flip it this way. And so all the
Hmm.
curves are just bent around the track. And so a lot of wood coasters back in the day, they had that philosophy. And so if you're building a deck or a house or anything like that, you'd never put all of your structure flat. You'd always put them up as a joist.
Yep.
Um, and so it's not a diving board, it's nice and strong. And so we're like, how can we harness that into this wood coaster philosophy of making something that is wood, it's genuine wood, it feels like wood, it sounds like wood, it is wood. How can we introduce that and not just be a straight, boring, flat section of track?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we started putting our heads together and said, hey, you know what? If we bring in some precision machinery, CNC, computer numerically controlled, is what that CNC stands for. Sometimes people just throw it out, assuming everybody knows what it is. And so we're like, hey, you know what? If we can cut the shape into the pieces of wood vertically, so the shape is actually in the track, and then we laminate them sideways, that's going to create something that's way stronger than the laminations of this. And so we started playing around with that, and the numbers looked good. Basically, you're talking about something that would be probably around 20 times stronger than your traditional track. And so it's like, oh, I wonder how much longer that would last if we didn't have the washboarding on our wooden coasters that nobody really likes. Come on, if you like washboarding,
Yeah.
call me. But we're just like, you know what, this I think there's something to this. So we created our little section of track. I forget the all the test pieces we made. But we actually, ended up having to invest in machinery at the time, and we created an engineered pre-cut track. So the first installation was at Kentucky Flyer, and it's still running great today. Like, that's 6 years ago.
Wow.
And the there was a good friend of mine. He was down there, and he was getting some pictures for social media and stuff like that. And the project manager, he knows that I probably know him because I'm, more in the enthusiast world than our project manager. He's like, "Hey, Mike, go talk to him." I was like, "Okay." So I went and talked to him. I was like, "Okay, none of the pictures of this area, please don't put these online. And also make sure you're wearing a hard hat when you're out here." So that was kind of something. So it was around when we were starting Grönlund in Sweden. So again, if you ever get a chance to go to Scandinavia, the whole Stockholm city is just really amazing. It's a lot of islands as part of the city. One of these islands is called Deer, Deer Park, Deer, I forget. But it's where Grönlund Amusement Park is. So back in the day, there was a thing called Tivoli, and Tivoli is kind of like amusement park, often urban. Often it's in like a city park area, um, and in this case, it is. So this has been around since the 1800s. Just a gorgeous park, just classic in every way, just super awesome. So they wanted a wood coaster um, with a kind of American feel. And so that was something that they're like, we don't have this in Europe. We want something that, feels like American. And so, naturally there's two, roller coaster manufacturers that do wood coasters that are both from America. So it's like, yeah, we got you covered there. And so they wanted the classic white. They wanted the chaser lights. If you look at the logo, it's actually the Statue of Liberty right at the top of Twister logo. It has a Statue of Liberty just sitting right there for everybody to see. And then the entrance, they also wanted to have that classic American boardwalk feel. And so we sent them some pictures. The two primary pictures that were a part of that is if you look at the entrance, it says Twister, and they're in like these big like light bulb letters. And so it's we sent them the Kennywood's Racer sign and said, "Hey, this is probably the vibe you're looking for." And then we also architecturally gave them some photos of the entrance of Geauga Lake's Big Dipper. Has this arch, and it has these like trestle kind of things kind of poking out, so it kind of creates this 3D kind of shape. And so they kind of used that as well as the Kennywood Racer sign to create the entrance for the ride, and had these kind of brass stanchions for the cues, and just they do things. They have a very nice budget, but just really creating that atmosphere of that classic American boardwalk. Why I mention that is that's around the time where they're like, we don't want to hire our guys in-house. We just want to give one company a check and you guys build a ride for us. And so at that time, we had established quite a bit of stuff. We hadn't, done a ride yet, but we'd worked with all the people, and it was mostly just a matter of, okay, who's paying for what insurance and who's paying the salaries of the guys and stuff like that. And we had already created Gravity Craft Corporation. So Gravity Craft Corporation was our product supply company, where Gravity Group was an engineering firm. So from a small business point of view, we learned a lot, just trial by fire. So Gravity Group, engineering firm, we need professional liability, errors and emissions insurance, that kind of stuff. And then Gravity Craft is producing cars. You got product liability, and then so we soon became general contractors as well. So it was around 2011. We can supply turnkey rides. So most of the rides after that that were Gravity Group, Gravity Craft rides were all just a turnkey product. We continued our relationship with Martin and Fleming's rides. So we had done Boardwalk Bullet, and then we also did Bay Beach's Zip and Pippin. So those are the two partnerships in the States that we work with them on. And that partnership led to a lot of rides over in China. So there's 13 tracks that we work together on, one racing coaster in Wuhan. And so yeah, lots of projects over in China. So I've been blessed to be on plenty of continents. So I took before early days of Gravity Group, let's see, 2006, 2008. I got married in 2005, and my wife and I went to Africa to Nigeria to visit some orphanages on a mission trip.
Nice.
And so it was really cool to see their culture, learned a lot. They say that there's the good parts of mission trips, and then there's the cynics. So I'm going to share both parts because there's not everybody understands what mission trips are about. Um, there's a organization here in Cincinnati called Back to Back Ministries, and they partner with orphanages all around the world. So they started kind of establishing and working with orphanages down in Monterrey, Mexico. Um, a husband and wife, Todd and Beth Kuchenberger, are their names. Just phenomenal people, amazing organization. And they use this statistic. There's 163 million orphans around the world,
Wow.
and it's like, that's pretty depressing,
Yeah.
or inspiring, however you look at it. And so what they do is they have mission trips, short-term mission trips. And so a group of us from our church went and just spent time with the orphans over there and did some construction projects, just learned about the culture, learned about what they're doing over there. Um, the big deficit of over there is like these orphans don't get to play with anybody but the other orphanages or other orphans at the orphanage. So whenever there's a group of people come in, they just want attention. They want to play. They want to play soccer. They want to do this. They want to do nails or whatever. And so it's just a really, really eye-opening experience. We went to this village. There was no, um, running water. It was just like this kind of primitive village, and the one of the guys we were with, he also spoke that language, so he all spoke through an interpreter. But when you're playing with kids and you're holding kids, there's no, like, love translates really easily, and so that was really impactful. But that was actually the first we jumped into Europe and then down to Nigeria. So Africa, I think, was my second continent that I was able to visit. And so now I've been to Europe, Asia, Africa, and of course the US. So Antarctica and South America. I've also been to Australia.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been really blessed to be able to go to these places on the company's dime, all the more, except for the mission trip. So let's see. So that puts us, yeah. So kind of as COVID started, is when a lot of the China jobs started drying up. So the country just kind of started shutting down. We actually helped commission one ride that we did at the Sunik Jinan Park in China. That was actually kind of commissioned during the first part of COVID.
Wow.
And so as we were going into COVID, we weren't sure what we were going to do. We, as a small business, you learn about a lot of things. We applied for the PPP loan, which was basically any business can apply to the government and say, hey, we need some help. These are the salaries we need to pay. We want to keep people employed. We can probably find stuff for them to do that's appropriate for social distancing and working remotely and all those kind of things. But again, we also didn't have a ton of opportunities. Particularly travel was really tough. We were working on Park Asterix, Tenard de Zeus at the time. We were doing some tracking over there. And like every week, we were just like, hey, is this the week we need to pull everybody because they're starting to shut down this or starting to shut down that? And we had some different papers we needed to get. And so we finally got to the point where, that project had to, got to get everybody back. And pretty soon thereafter, we had been talking with Kings Island. So here's a full circle thing. So Custom Coasters, I mentioned the vice president was Randy Larrick. So after we did Hades, so Randy, he's got decades of experience. He worked for Charlie since he was young. So really great resource. He worked at Mount Olympus for a little bit doing maintenance. He worked other places, doing non-wood coaster stuff, just whatever. He ended up working at Kings Island. And so they needed some engineering help on some stuff they were doing. As you can understand, Kings Island's heavily involved with the state inspections, and often they'll be like, "Hey, we need, we see this, or we need to make a change on the ride, or whoever. We need to make sure we have the paperwork good. We need an engineering signature or consultation, or whatever." So Randy gives us a call. He's always been a good friend of our project manager, Jeff, and so we started talking a little bit more with Kings Island. And this was during COVID. We're like, "Oh man, what's going on here?" And so we're like, "Well, we have this track. We need to, do all this work on Racer, and we can't travel." So, literally it's, between work and home for a few of us that work at Gravity Group, Kings Island's between that. And so, we were able to sell them on the track, and that was kind of like the big. Oh, there goes my earbud.
Oh,
told you I was fighting with them. So it was really cool because I feel that it was definitely God was like, okay, I'm going to work through this time. I'm going to get emotional. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is there's times I mentioned some of the lyrics for the different songs that kind of hit you at a certain time. And I was just, our church is going through the Bible. Usually it's every 2 years or so, and they use that scripture for the messages as well as for the different groups and things like that. And in this case, I was just reading this. I usually just listen to the audio Bible for my daily thing because I'm trying to do too many things at once. So Proverbs 22, verses 29. And God's got a sense of humor. So do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand. Sorry. He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. And so it was really tough because we didn't know, paychecks, everything else. It was just really tough. And, just the fact that he would say, stand before kings. And I was like, God, that's just hysterical. Like, come on. Because that was the first job that we had with the whole, Kings Island. So it was kind of like, it could be nothing. The people that don't understand that there can be a supernatural, that's okay, but, there's too many things like that in my life, whether it's a song that's on the radio or a scripture that just blows you away. And it's just like, hey, this is real. This is tactile, supernatural stuff. If you let your mind, kind of go there. And that's where the faith is.
Yeah.
Yes, this could just be a random verse, has nothing to do with anything. But, when I was in the situation and we're dealing with Kings Island, I read that, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, God. Like I said, I just kind of get emotional. That was, that I was bawling at that time, I gotta say. And then, after that, we just started, doing a lot more, with the engineer pre-cut track. We were, or still are. So we've been averaging 10 rides every year, doing upgrades and really maintaining the wood coaster. And if you look at the condition of the Racer and the Beast in 2019, that was some bleak times.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, are these rides going to get just demolished?
Yeah.
Are they going to go the road of Thunder Road? And so I think that was certainly the spark, for us, and at least Kings Island, if not the chain, of like, hey, these can be enjoyable. Like, there's like this little glimmer of hope.
I got my own testimony of that there, Michael. Like, I told you.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
I told you this at Spark at the Arc. Like, I
Okay.
refused to ride the Beast before you
Yeah.
guys retract it, and now I love it every time I go, especially during haunt season. Pitch black, you're
Yeah.
flying through the woods. I love it. And I love what you did with the racer. That was a perfect 50th anniversary present for the park, preserving the
Yeah.
original ride that started it all. Like, we would not have the Beast today if it didn't start with the racer. So,
Yeah,
what you
for
guys
sure.
did was amazing to that. And again, it just goes back to just God has a sense of humor.
Hmm.
Even in the midst of what seemed like one of the most uncertain times in our country's history. There's been numerous, but this is the most recent uncertain times. Just didn't know what was going to come out of the pandemic. God used it for good in many different
Yeah.
situations, especially the Gravity Group. And He's been able to use you guys to be a light to those you get to work with and just do some amazing things. And just the fact He used that verse in Proverbs, of all things with
Hmm.
kings, just confirmation that
Yeah.
you're doing what He wants you to do.
Yeah. It's still weird. It's like, why wooden roller coasters? Like, why am I in this world? And why does God want me in it? Like, you know. So, recently I did a article interview for my university
Mhm.
magazine. So, University of Akron did an interview on me, and I'm fully convinced that, um, and this was actually the same thing from a non-religious point of view. But Ace always talked about, you come for the coasters, you stay for the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Ace, as an American coaster
Yeah.
enthusiast, for all of you, we're trying to keep all the acronyms up to speed, everybody. So it's very much true. Like, God gives us interests,
Mm-hmm.
so I might be interested in roller coasters and soccer and um, contemporary Christian music
Mm-hmm.
and photography. And, I connect with people based off those interests, and God's putting us together. And, if I can be a positive influence and a light to somebody, based off that, like, that's really awesome,
Yeah.
and um, I think he works that as his, like, I kind of think he's like a puppet master. He's like, okay, this person's going to encounter
Yeah.
this, and yeah, they all could be circumstances, or they could also be divine appointments.
Absolutely.
That can be interpreted however you want. But, you know, once you kind of experience that supernatural a little bit, um, I think that's really the core. And this is going to sound a little heretical, but if we're looking at John 3:16, where God so loved the world that He gave His uh, only begotten Son, um, but He's talking about eternal life, that all may have eternal life. And often we're talking about eternal life as the life after our time here on earth. But I remember hearing a message sometime, they're talking about how that eternal life um, is actually more of a timeless life.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, that's deep, because, like, quote, Switchfoot here, um, what's more to this life, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be more to this life. And if we're just here as robots, like, what does that benefit anybody?
Yeah.
What does it benefit us? What does it benefit God? And so this eternal life starts now. We can have eternal life starting now, and it happens to go after our death, and we're secure on where we're going. Um, but, living the supernatural life right now is part of that. Like, that is the gift that He's given to us. If
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have anything supernatural, I don't know, this life would be really boring.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, okay, I'm just going through the day, and be like, man, okay, what's the point of anything? And I remember um, having a different perspective as well. I remember 20 years ago, I was just kind of like mad at God for something or other. And I was like, God, I don't know. I just want to live a day without you. See if I
Yeah.
can do it. I was just kind of like, it's nothing like too, like, negative or anything, but just like, okay, I just want to try it. And so I get through the day and I'm just like, okay, I'm not listening to anything. I'm not, hearing anything. I'm not reading anything. And then I get to the sunset and it's this beautiful sunset. I was just like, man, dang it, God. It's like, you created this beauty for no reason. Like, there is no reason that a sunset should be beautiful.
Yeah.
And he's just, painting it. And, there's no scientific reason that anything really should be beautiful.
Yeah.
There's, you look at animals and they have mating and things like that, but just the beauty in nature, the beauty of sunsets, the beauty of everything. He's good, he's true, he's beautiful, he makes those three things. That's actually the motto of our school is truth, beauty, goodness.
Awesome.
But it's really true. And the beauty of a wooden roller coaster, the goodness of a wooden roller coaster, the mathematics, the truth behind a wooden roller coaster. So, but yeah, the beauty just captured me. It just wrecked me. I was just like, oh man, God, you just really won. I was like, I was trying to get away from you, and I just can't get away from you. So it's kind of like at that point, I was just like, okay, God, it wasn't like I'm not all in, or now I'm in. But it was kind of like one of those memorable times. I was just like, you know what, God, there is a lot more to this life. You are working some really cool things out there. And it's my choice to be on board or let it pass. And I feel that this is kind of one of the things that's on my heart is like, we have the opportunity to listen to him. And this gets a little weird because it's so misused. Like the idea of, oh, I'm listening to God, or I'm listening from God, or God told me this. It's very challenging. I was inspired by the Mr. Beast games or Beast games episode, and so I watched Beast games. And Preacher was, very dramatically, he's like, oh, I got to listen to God, and I was just like, this can go, and I think they actually covered it well.
Yeah.
Like, we have people all over the spectrum, left and right and everywhere else, and they're seeing this person act in a supernatural way or not. Hard to say.
Yeah.
And you get to hear everybody's thoughts on that. We as church people think that's the most important thing in the world. It's like, you have to believe like us. You have to, act like us. That's what Christianity is. That's what living the life of God is. Where I think sometimes we're focused on us being put into a box and being perfect and having the perfect kids and the perfect, season past and the perfect this and, having our life together. Where I believe I was looking it up one time, and that phrase, be perfect as I am perfect, it actually goes back to what's called the Shema in the Old Testament. And that is, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And if you look at that, you're not focusing on yourself. You're focusing on God. Yeah. And that's what really matters. And so the be perfect as I am perfect is saying, hey, my focus, my energy, my communication is with God the Father. That's what I want. I want that relationship with God. It's not about, being perfect, having everything together. And I think that's also something where, they say so many times, C.S. Lewis and all these other people, that the biggest challenge for Christianity is the Christians. It's not Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it's so hard to look at ourselves. It really is.
Yep.
But I feel like it's just really important that we can do that. So roller coaster models didn't end at the Soda Jack's ice creamer. So during that time, there's a guy out of Virginia named Jack Reimer. He gives me a call and he says, hey, can you make me a roller coaster model? And I just started custom coasters. Be completely honest with you, made some terrible money decisions on this roller coaster model. with what he sold it for me, or what I sold it for, did not cover the cost, and so I was in debt because this coaster model, it was lousy. And then Jack asked me, he's like, "Hey, can you build a roller coaster model for me?" I was like, "Dude, I'm not making them anymore. It's just a labor of love. Find somebody else." And so he calls back and says, "Hey, can you design it for me, and then I'll get it built?" And I
Wow.
was like, let me think about that. So I get back with him. I was like, "Well, if I design it, what if you could get something built that could be a system that could be enable anybody to make a roller coaster model? So we don't have just this one fixed roller coaster model." And so he's like, "Okay, that's interesting." And so we start kicking around. Jack's in the hobby industry, so I got to get to know him quite well, and learn about his world. So RC cars is kind of what you know, he's got a couple companies involved with that. And he just has a passion for models, and particularly roller coaster models. He's a Kennywood guy. He grew up in Pittsburgh. Um, so we started talking about this system, and he's one of those guys I can just brainstorm with, and we're just like right on the same wavelength. And so we came up with the system that was a flexible track, fully functional. If it's a roller coaster model, it's got to function. And so we came up with a new company called Coaster Dynamics. A
Yeah.
lot of people have heard of Coaster Dynamics. It's in every gift shop, pretty much in
Yeah.
every amusement park. It started with the model behind me, actually. So
That's awesome.
this is the Scorpion roller coaster model. This is all flexible. There's some rigid pieces, functional train. The precursor to the Scorpion was technically the Dragon. It's a little bit larger than that. And so I was able to kind of take all this stuff that I knew about roller coaster models, and then knowing that these are going to be built by whomever without knowledge of ball bearings and all these other intricate things that I learned about. And so we were able to create this system. So we came up with the Dragon, the Scorpion. I've got and then right after that, we came up with the HO gauge Comet, which is actually up on my shelf over
Wow.
there. So that was for the model train industry. That was actually probably one of the most successful things that we did, because it was a fixed market. It wasn't like, "Hey, who wants to buy a roller coaster model?" It's more of a, "Hey, I can have a roller coaster model in my train set." Now that's an easy visualization. So we made those. We started. We came out with the train. We said, "Hey, let's take that train and theme it to all these different rides that are all around all the different parks." So we came up with the Statics line. That's really what kind of propelled us into the theme park. So Kings Island was an early adopter. Cedar Point was an early adopter. And so, soon after that, we started coming up with the nano coasters. So the nano coasters, if you are living under a rock, they're coming flat, and you kind of bend them, and it creates a 3D shape, and it's a full identity of that ride, custom, for that park. So those are all custom designs that we did for parks. Now, as we were getting busy with the Gravity Group, I was stepping away from Coaster Dynamics. So I was full time on both for a little while there, particularly as we didn't have as much for a Gravity Group. Then we hired our first engineer, Josh Searcy, and he came in on the Comet
Nice.
model. And then we also had another model that we did was kind of like this, but had more pre-cut pieces, which was called the Phoenix. And then after that, we started getting into more stuff. Josh stepped away. We brought another guy in named Dan Linden, who's still with us now. He's our engineer. I do extremely little. Like I, I, I'd say I do zero pretty much at the company at this point, except I'm the biggest fan.
Nice.
But I do have another story that I need to talk about as well. But so we did the Comet, the Phoenix, all the nano coasters, and then as you might know, Matt Schmatzer, extraordinaire of all kinds of 3D printed and cutout, he started making these roller coaster cars that were basically wood cutouts called coaster cutouts. And so we kind of merged his background with our distribution and all the other production. Jack's got a full production facility in Virginia, can make almost anything. So that was actually really cool too, because that was really ramping up right before COVID. And we were able to actually manufacture a lot of that stuff in the States. We didn't have as much international shipping because a lot of those lines were shut down. Um, and so yeah, so now we got nano coasters, coaster cutouts, the coaster logos, the light up logos now are new. The parkscapes. So all these things are all kind of part of that company. It's a tiny company. Like it's Jack and Dan and some people at Jack's place. Again, kind of a small business challenge of all the different things. For all those people who want to start business, yeah, we have all those on all the different companies that I'm involved with. So speaking of small companies, another random chapter in the Gravity Group, Gravity Craft history is in 2020, ironically, also during COVID. We had the opportunity, somehow we had the money to do it before, I don't know, it was right before the COVID hit. So this was January of 2020, or even beforehand. There's a company called Costa Store. And they are a supply company for the music industry. They're kind of a tier 2, so nobody's really ever heard of them. So if you're talking about like automotive and aviation and other things like that, or roller coasters, tier 1 are the main companies that you have the brand name. And then tier 2 are all the suppliers for them. Tier 3 are the suppliers for the tier 2. So you might have Audi, and then a tier 1 might be, say, Johnson Controls, and they make seats for them. And then there's other companies that make widgets for the seat company. So in this case, Costa Store is a tier 2 company, and they developed the Cincinnati brake, as so it's called. And one of their first projects was the Beast. So they put the brakes on the Beast 40 years ago. So naturally, if a company's been around 40 years old, there's probably some aged people involved. And so that was the case. So they were looking to retire. And so two gentlemen that we mostly dealt with, Mike and Basil, worked through the process. We ended up purchasing them. We were about a quarter of their business. And so we were kind of a good, place geographically. We had warehousing. They didn't. They had, we had engineering. They didn't. They had a great book of business that we didn't. And so it worked out pretty well. It's worked out pretty well. So if you go by our company, it says the Center of Gravity. It says Gravity Group, Gravity Craft, and Costa Store. So those are the Gravity Group of companies, if you will. So what's next, Donnie? I've been talking straight for probably 2 hours now. I'm only getting started.
Oh, that is awesome. But it's so cool and so neat to see the hand of God through all of it, and just seeing the direction He's led you through all these years, from just giving you that passion of coasters from a young age to where you're just building them in your house, to where He brought you to the Gravity Group where it is now, just starting in those little pieces and everything to Coaster Dynamics. I didn't even know you made those. I didn't know you were the one that produced those. That's awesome. I have one in my office here. I haven't put together yet, but it's Montezuma's Revenge. So I have that. But it's so neat. And every time I go to go to Kings Island, I always have to go to the gift shop, and I always have to look at the wall and see what all you guys have there. But yeah, I love it. And it's so cool to see what God's been doing through your life and through the company, and just praising the Lord for it all, man. And what we want to do now is we're going to take a break here. We're going to put a pause in here and make a part 2, and we're going to answer some questions that our listeners submitted. So we'll be right back, guys. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Ride of Your Life podcast. We hope it was a blessing, help, and encouragement to you. Stay connected with ROYL on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. Simply search Ride of Your Life Ministries. You can also visit our website, rideofyourlifeministries.com, for the latest news and updates, as well as our merch shop. Be sure to stop by our YouTube channel. Simply search Ride of Your Life Ministries for this episode and others from previous seasons, and you can also find future content there as well. We hope you'll join us next week for another great episode of the Ride for Life podcast. God bless.